for somebody who is not familiar with like the cost levels of like hiring in Pakistan, if you compare like developer costs in the UK or US to what you would pay in Pakistan for a similar seniority level, like what's the difference? Are we talking like 2 times, 5 times, 10 times?
Even at the very senior level, it will be 3 4 times easy. At the junior level, I think the times is just too much. But what I've also noticed is that good talent requests good salary as well. So I wouldn't sort by price and go lowest first, kind of thing.
While the world's still asleep, we're already grinding. Walking foreign streets, big city lights so blinding. Learning and hustling in this relentless game. The emerge pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Yeah. While the world's still asleep, we're breaking the frame. We already grinding. The emerge pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Big city lights, so blinding. Check it out.
Hi, and welcome to the Emerge podcast, where we break down emerging markets and give you actionable insights on how to start and grow your business in them. Today's episode is in collaboration with RecruitGo, and our guest is Zubair Lutfullah, who runs a no-code software development agency based out of Dubai. Now, what sets Zubair's business apart is how he's able to leverage his position in Dubai and the UK to generate clients, while at the same time taking advantage of highly skilled and relatively cheaper resources from Pakistan. Check it out. Zubair and Lauri, thank you so much for being on this episode of the Emerge podcast. I can already tell that this is going to be an excellent episode for people looking to, run their businesses either from Dubai or from Pakistan, or take advantage of both of those countries. So, Zubair, I would love to start with you. So, you've been in this space for a while now, and you now have a bubble agency. What I always like to ask my guests is, how did you end up in this space? Why bubble? How did that happen?
So I think the word bubble can be sometimes confusing. I'll just change it a little bit to a custom software agency, because that bubble is a specific tech stack here. But yeah, custom software agency. Why and how did I start this one? Good question. I'll be honest. I don't think I know. That's my true answer. Kind of thing.
This definitely
I
happened. Yeah.
Yeah. It's well. I'll start by saying that. Around 4.5, 5 years ago, I knew that I wanted to do something. I didn't know what. So I actually went on a lot of meetups in Birmingham, and they were data science meetups, cybersecurity meetups, Salesforce. I tried at one point to go into the Salesforce CRM solution consulting market, and a bunch of like WordPress as well. So I tried a bunch of like other different things. On one of the tech meetups, somebody introduced me to Bubble, and Bubble is just one particular tech stack. And what it unlocked was like it just clicked in terms of like, okay, this. I looked at it, I was like, this is good. The tech I liked, and one of the other things I think in that sense, I'd say I got lucky. Uh, Simon, who told me about this, he was like, "There's a huge demand and there's less supply of good Bubble devs." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So it snowballed quite quickly from there. I think it's that standard case of a hungry crowd. So I was like, I'm a Bubble dev. I was like, please. And even though I was like, I don't know, 2 3 hours ahead of them in terms of Bubble knowledge. But yeah, once that started, and then it's just a standard case of delivering results. I think that's where a lot of the hard work comes along, and the sleepless nights come along. Because it's one thing to call yourself like, oh, and learn the skill itself, then do the sales. But then after the sale itself, it's just delivering results, making sure it works, not just on my computer, but on client's computer, and then production users computer, which is hard in any custom software. It's like, works on my PC, standard
Yeah.
computer developer thing. But yeah, so that's how it started.
So,
Okay, so that was like 4 or 5 years ago. So
Yeah,
how there is a bit of a background story, I'm sure, to it. Like
of course.
you're born and raised in Pakistan. You mentioned
Yeah.
Birmingham for our listeners. That's Birmingham, UK, not Alabama.
yeah.
Yes.
So so like walk us like very briefly through like how did you get from like living in Pakistan to suddenly like going to meet up in Birmingham?
So I was born and raised in Pakistan. I did my undergrad degree there in electrical engineering. But I think it's one of those like my brother did it, and then my eldest brother, then my brother. So I did
I
it.
get it, man. Yeah.
There's no hard science behind why I did it. I should have probably done computer science. I should not have done electrical, because after graduation, the 1 year I worked, it was more in embedded software, like the type of software that runs on your Wi-Fi router, on your camera, on your like just digital electronics. After that, I went for a master's in embedded systems in Leeds, UK, West Yorkshire. Still love the place. And then, yeah, after that, I actually started a PhD. So I'm proud to say I'm a PhD dropout. That's a cool thing in startup practice.
I was about to start calling you doctor now because that would have made Pakistani families really proud. They have a doctor in
Yeah,
the family.
no, so that's why I'm like PhD
That's a
dropout.
very
Dropouts are cool.
very
Cool thing.
late stage dropout.
Yeah.
Yeah. But 6 months into the PhD, I got a job offer from a nearby company. And that too was in embedded software engineering. So Linux kernel development, quite different to web, not web as such. A couple of years there, that was a FTSE 250 company, but standard like layoffs and everything happened. So I was switched into a different segment, which was more startup oriented, Series A. I think not Series A. They were, I think, in the they did do a few series rounds. It was like a couple of million or something. And I still remember I was like, I was during the interview, I was like, how much runway do you have? And he's like, yeah, 3 months. I'm like,
Standard startup stuff, yeah.
like 3 months. Like, are you sure? And it's like, yeah. We're just discussing and everything. It was before COVID and before this recent wave where funding was a bit easier. So yeah, that startup, a couple of years there, and in the UK, your visa is tied to employment. So I was basically waiting for 5-ish years to pass once you have your indefinite leave, and that's when you can actually do your own thing or start your own business. So during this 5 years time, there was lots of like Hacker News Forum, startup, Y Combinator, startup school, and things on the side, failing a lot of those times. And but yeah, so I think it does build up. It's not like one day I decided and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start a business.
Okay.
So it does build up over time.
So I was recently in the UK, and I noticed a lot of people from Pakistan on the streets walking like looking like probably like Zubair's 10 years ago, like young skinny dudes who look like they're spending a lot of time with books and computers rather than and so if you were one of them again, like is that the path you should take, like get a job for 5 years and then start your own company, or like would you in hindsight have changed something?
Very good question. I would say that in the 5 years, if I had done something differently, I would have focused. I probably would have still gone the job route, because the student and the job route is by far the easiest to visa route to kind of like get the pathway. Like if you can go straight towards like venture funded by X million, and so the visa routes open up. But if you need a visa or residency, then I think the easiest one is the student plus and then employment route. The one thing I would have done differently in those 5 years would have been posting on LinkedIn, growing some type of audience, doing some marketing, understand like just some type of audience related thing. It's just media leverage overall, because 5 years is a good time. So I've started a YouTube channel, I've started LinkedIn, I've started Twitter. So it all snowballs over time. So if there were like 5 more years behind all of that effort, which you can easily do during employment. I think during employment, doing a business on the side is a bit frowned upon. Posting on LinkedIn, go wild. Yeah. So grow the network that way, do whatever. So that's something I probably would have done. I don't know if.
But then the UK has changed now, right? With the rising, cost of living, and we've seen that from a lot of countries, people are now moving to the Middle East, especially from Canada, UK, even the US. And I believe you are one of those people as well. So let's talk about your move from the UK to Dubai now. How did that happen?
Yeah. So cost of living, I think Dubai is pretty expensive. I don't think Dubai is the destination for cost of living reasons. That would be like Bali or some other place, not Dubai. But in general, it was a mix of factors. It's our parents are quite old now. We wanted our kids to have more closer interaction with their grandparents, both ways, like for them to come over and for us to go over as well more frequently. So the UK, it's just a bit far. The visas are a bit of a hassle.
Yeah.
Here, the visa process for parents is very, very straightforward, and the flights are way shorter as well. But actually operating from Pakistan is a bit challenging. Just for like clients do ask, it's still custom software agency, because clients ask, where are you physically? Kind of thing. I've had that question quite a few times, and then I say Dubai, and nobody bats an eye about it. But then, and some actually say, oh, so you're going to be expensive. So I'm like, yeah. But yeah, then when it comes to overall Middle East, I think the UAE is leading the pack in terms of ease of doing business and digital connection, banking, infrastructure all over. And within the UAE and visas as well, within the UAE, I think Dubai is leading the pack overall as well, like in terms of just things working. Things working faster, I'd say.
Yeah.
The pace is way faster. I think things work everywhere. I'm not going to say anything. Even Pakistan, I know a lot of people who run exactly the type of agency that we run from Pakistan. So it does work. I'm not saying it doesn't work. But
Okay, so
overall,
maybe
easy.
we need to give a bit of context here. So
Yeah,
you already
sure.
mentioned it's like a software development agency focused on Bubble. Is it Bubble or Bubble IO?
Bubble.io.
.io development.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so essentially, it's an agency business. You are in Dubai, and where's your team, and how many team members you have?
Okay, so the team is primarily in Pakistan. So there are about a dozen software developers. We do have some product managers who ad hoc work on us depending on the project and the need. Roberto's in Italy, Ben's in London, occasionally Dom, he's also in London. So product managers and UX, it's a little bit more. We work a lot with startups. So recently, a lot of the work is with AI solutions in startups, AI solutions in businesses, chatbots. So when it comes to like cutting edge product UX requirements, it's easier to get like European involvement in terms of talent. But once the product has been kind of like analyzed and defined, getting the bulk of the build done in Pakistan is very good, and they're really good at it as well. So and yeah, I'm in the middle all over the place.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lauri, you
so
remember we
essentially
had a
Sorry.
go ahead.
we had a similar conversation with when we did the podcast for Thailand, where the Australian startup, they used to hire the core developers who would do the grunt work from Thailand, but then they would still need product managers and the high end kind of architectural stuff from European countries.
Yeah.
So I guess what Zubair is saying, that for companies who are looking for hardcore developers, they can definitely look at Pakistan, but not for the higher up positions, the strategy and the architecture and the design of it, right?
So I don't know about the strategy, architecture and design as well. They can do it. It's
Mhm.
more the understanding the product
Right.
requirements, because there's a huge cultural difference. It's like you've lived in Dubai, like the WhatsApp culture here is just completely different
Yeah.
than anywhere in Europe. If you tell them in anywhere in Europe, I used to live in the UK. I was like, oh, what do you mean I send my passport scan on WhatsApp? Just some Asian. And at first I tried to resist a lot, and then I'm like, yeah, fine.
You need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just location based differences and understanding. So if some startup founder that we're working with is in New York or in London, just understanding all their requirements quickly with less friction and less repetition on their part, that's the angle. Once it's
Right.
understood, the dev architect is still possible. It's just the requirement spec and the local nuance. And same the other way around, I'd say. It doesn't happen very often, but you'll struggle if you get a UK developer to build for the Gulf. They just
Yeah.
won't understand that much, or build for Pakistan even.
Yeah.
Like,
So
what do you mean
it's not
cash
a
on
talent
delivery?
issue. It's more of a cultural
Yeah,
understanding issue. That makes
yeah,
sense. Okay.
yeah. It's more
Yeah, so
cultural, I think.
let's maybe talk a little bit more about it, because like as part of Emerhub and RecruitGo, like we talk a lot about with like people from like international investors and like every time I mention them, like, oh, you should like set up a back office in Pakistan or Philippines, and then every second person says like, oh, I already tried it, it didn't work. Like my team just like disappeared or delivered like suboptimal quality work. It didn't work. So I know it's possible to make it work, but it's not easy, right? So what's your like system? How do you get the best out of your team?
So, I think I hired software engineers. So they are undergrad, like graduates overall. I know which, being from Pakistan, I know which universities are like better. And full disclosure and honesty, the first year I made mistakes in hiring. So I think that's a standard first year of business mistake as well. So maybe the first year of offshore hiring, you can also make kind of mistakes, trust a bit too much, or not verify or cross check references. But once you grow a team and you establish the systems, they can be really good. And one thing I've found over time is the first time around getting something done is a bit harder. The next time around, it's way easier. So if it's like you have a process that you're out like delegating, the first time around you'll have to kind of spend some time, energy in delegation and write some instructions, handhold a little bit. And I think the hand holding part is something which people are shy of doing. They're like, "Okay, I hired a software engineer. Why can't he just do it?" kind of thing. Well, they're in a different kind of baseline environment. So handhold once, and the next time it's better. So it's more. I'd say it's more a little bit suited to similar. Not I'd say the same repetitive SOP style work, but if it's similar work, then they get really good at it and really over time efficient.
And I'm sure it helps that you being from Pakistan, you understand all that. Lauri, I guess that's what differentiates Zubair from anyone else from outside Pakistan trying to hire, because he understands the cultural nuances, which again, plugging our company in, which is probably what sets RecruitGo apart, because wherever we hire from, we have people who understand that market. So if we are hiring from Pakistan, as Zubair mentioned, we would know, which universities we need to hire from, which cities even we need to hire from. There are a couple of cities that are, well known for bad developers and bad, workers. So we know where not to go. So yeah, I think for anyone who's looking to hire, they would probably need a Pakistani proxy who would do it for them. And companies like RecruitGo can actually, do that pretty well.
Yeah, Laurie, you were saying something.
Yeah, so that concept of proxy sounds very interesting, actually. So is that like a way to make it work? Like find like another Zubair and hire them to run the Pakistan team?
I actually met a couple of EOR companies here last year, and they all said that people want to hire from Pakistan, but they don't want to hire Pakistanis. So it because they know that Pakistanis are great at what they do, but they know that in order for them to manage the work, they need someone who understands the market. So yes, having another Zubair who understands and can manage Pakistanis, that's what I believe international clients might be looking for.
So I think if I had to do it again, and if I try and force myself, I don't think it's possible to not be a Pakistani. Like,
of course,
and I'd say maybe hire one senior who has maybe done an international master's
yes,
and gone back. Yeah. That'd be the safer route. They'd be a bit expensive, but the communication challenges would be much less. So and there's many people who go for masters abroad, go back and are looking for jobs, especially remote jobs in a foreign currency. So if you pay proper salaries, not like the very lower end of them, pay a decent salary, you'll get decent quality talent there as well. And if you have that proxy or manager or whatever you want to call him, and then grow the team under him instead of directly hiring fresh graduates. So I hired fresh graduates, but I was doing the proxy hard work and growing that way. But I don't think I would recommend it to somebody else. I probably would recommend hiring a more senior person who you don't have any communication challenges. And then the second thing I'd add there is definitely keep an eye on them. So don't just like set and forget kind of thing. So there should be a feedback loop in terms of like, what have I done recently? For example, in our team is all remote as well, but we've got like daily schedule updates for each project, and those daily updates, there's an automation in Slack which will ping everybody to just write an update at the end of the day. What did you do? What are you stuck on? And what are you going to do tomorrow? Standard software kind of 3 questions. And so just like making that update loop, I keep an eye on those. And if something doesn't come along, like what happened, uh, sending a video update over, a weekly video update, just have that feedback loop. You can't just like go one way, push the task and just forget about it. Have that sort of like reporting feedback loop, and then it should be all right.
Okay, so maybe for somebody who is not familiar with like the cost levels of like hiring in Pakistan, like if you compare like developer costs in the UK or US to what you would pay in Pakistan for a similar seniority level, like what's the difference? Are we talking like 2 times, 5 times, 10 times?
uh at the very senior level, even at the very senior level, it will be 3-4 times easy. At the junior level, I think the times is just too much.
Yeah.
It's unfair. It's unfair
Yeah.
level, too much. But what I've also noticed, Ed, is that good talent requests good salary as well. So I wouldn't sort by price and go lowest first, kind of thing.
Yeah, because the world's open up, right? So even developers in Pakistan now know what they're worth internationally. So gone are the days when you can find very super cheap resources with international experience. Now these guys know, and they're asking for not exactly what someone in another country would ask for. Of course, it's still much lower. I'd say the three times factor applies pretty much to any skilled
Yeah,
developer you can
on
get, right?
on
On
average,
average.
3 times would be a good kind of measure
Yeah.
to go with. Yeah. So,
So
but
one thing
like,
I've noticed is like, because I hire maybe like around 10 people from Pakistan right now for my companies, and like sometimes you get like the software developers applying, and then their salary expectation is something like, I don't know, $300, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I know what's going on. Like that $300, that this full time job is going to be one out of your 5 jobs, full time jobs you're going to take up. So like, why don't you just give me a price that you would charge for like actual full time work? So like, how do you navigate this? Because this seems to be like this overemployment concept seems to be also very common.
yeah, I think I got lucky in that sense as well. No, I wouldn't say lucky. I think the way we operate is different. So we are remote, which is very unusual for offshore companies. In fact, every Pakistani has told me I'm making a mistake. Okay. But luckily, even before COVID, I worked in a remote company. So I knew that the model works. It's even before COVID, even I was like, remote works. It's just a different way of doing the work. After that, much more of our talent pool is mothers and female, and they are like, they start on time, they do the work, and then they stop
Significantly
on
more
time.
loyal as well. Yeah.
They start on time, they do what the work that needs to be done, and they just deliver results. And after that, it all businesses vary. Not every business can be done, but in terms of like our business, which is very much direct client services agency, project by project, incentive alignment and having a bit of like revenue share, and some chance of like growing the salary or growing the income. Before that, it was a struggle. Turnover is a challenge. But since rolling those out, it has been better. I don't have huge numbers of data. It's just more gut feeling. But that is one thing, because, and the reason the $300 a month, it's just everything's expensive. So if it's not adding up, they're going to start looking around here and there. So we've done currency adjustments in the past. It's like, okay, serious inflation risk happening. We get paid in USD, so we'll just pass on the difference to an. We've done those styles of adjustments. We've tried. We've got quarterly kind of like bonuses, some type of revenue share. So there are mechanisms. The base salary, I personally, maybe it's just me. I try and keep a bit like normal levels, and it's the top ups and the extra and the like, and they're all remote. So there's no fuel expense. That's a huge
Huge
expense
expense, yeah.
nowadays for transport. So yeah, each business has its own kind of like pros and cons.
Yeah, 7
And
rupee
like,
increase today in petrol prices.
yeah, it's just every other day.
Every other day, man. Every other day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also interesting. Like when me and my wife were starting Emerhub, then like one of the like tailwinds we had was that like in Indonesian rupiah, like similar currency but different. So Indonesian rupiah was like kept getting weaker and weaker, and our customers were paying us in US dollars, and we were spending in the rupiahs. So without changing our prices, kind of like our like the margins got better and better over time.
Got better. Yeah.
So is that something similar with like Pakistan? Like is like the like earning dollars, spending rupees concept working there?
Yeah, it does. It does. I try and pass on to an extent, but yeah, in general, you won't realize it over 6 months. You like the difference would have might there would have been a difference
I
already.
mean, over the last 2 years alone, the dollar went from 170 to now 280. So if that when you have that big of a difference, the salaries can jump like 2 to 3 times even with that much of a difference. But of course, with that, with people who are living in Pakistan are also facing inflation, because as the dollar gets stronger, Pakistani rupee gets weaker. The cost of living increases as well. So I like the idea of where passing a lot of that on to your employees, so that that's how you retain them. And or that's something that a lot of people in Pakistan are now looking for remote jobs that pay in the USD, and that's the only reason why. Because first off, the budget this year that passed it was terrible for the salaried individual, and that's the general consensus. Because generally, IT companies who are exporting services, or people like me, or people like developers in Pakistan who are exporting IT services, they pay no tax on the remittance that they receive. But if you're a salaried individual in Pakistan, you're paying a huge chunk of your salary in taxes. And add inflation on top of that, the cost of living increases. And now this year, the government has increased the slabs for salaried individuals anyway. So at the moment, I would say Pakistani, skilled workers are primed to work internationally and earn in US dollar, because that's the only way left for anyone to survive the inflation.
Yeah, so I think by now everybody in my team is getting paid in US dollars. Like when, like last year, I asked them like, okay, like what's something you care the most about? Like, is it like the benefits or social, like private health insurance? So no, like just pay us in US dollars and we're good.
No, I remember when we had this conversation, Lauri asked me that, why is it that every month I'm sending lesser money? He's like, why is that happening? I was like, the dollar is going through crazy changes. And then we just set everything in dollars, and we found our team being very grateful for that, and actually showing more loyalty. So and I think that's what the biggest fear, as Lauri said, would be people having multiple jobs. But when you take care of people that way, Pakistanis are definitely one of the most loyal and hardworking people in the world, I'd say. And Zubair, I'm sure you must have experienced.
We are biased.
We are biased, yeah. But then I would also say that Pakistanis are the I wouldn't say smart. What's a slightly negative term for smart? I wouldn't say cunning. Cunning's too negative. But we're somewhere in the middle. So you have to watch out, but then you can still have great results from people in Pakistan.
Maybe shrewd is a intermediate word.
Possibly, yeah.
But we're biased. We're biased.
So one thing I noticed is like Pakistani people seem to be very fast at jumping on the new trends. Like, for example, like on Twitter, like when the like doing like trades became a thing, then suddenly my feed was full of Pakistanis doing like trades on all kind of topics, like 100 things I learned from like Elon Musk's speech last night, and like it almost to a point it sounded like a bit of like robotic. So like so it feels like there's an opportunity there to like capitalize on it, but also like maybe like somebody sometimes like needs to keep an eye on it so that it would sound like organic and like authentic.
Yeah, I think there are a few influencers on YouTube who are very pro freelancing, and they're very good. So perhaps it could be a case of one of those viral videos of like, yeah, here's how to like grow your reach on it's kind of like Twitter, and then like 50,000 people are just like
Because again,
sending
Pakistanis
threads.
are tech savvy, right? So they've always got their eye on any opportunity emerging in social media. So, one video that says this is how you do it, everybody's doing it. You're absolutely right.
And then the trick falls down. So that it's
Yeah.
standard, like, yeah, the trick stops
So
working.
whoever comes up with the trick definitely takes the cake. Yeah. But anyway, so other than the recruiting side of things, let's talk a bit more about the business side in the UAE, because that's where I would definitely focus on. So you set up your own company in the UAE. Was it after you got here, or did you do that from the UK?
I did that from the UK. Set up a free zone company.
Mm-hmm.
My case is a bit different. I don't think I'd recommend people. Well, part of me recommends doing it. So I came on the digital nomad remote work visa
Ah, got it. Okay.
to the UAE. So that was my visa. And then I also opened the free zone to
Okay.
start operating. So my visa was not tied to my company during year one, and in
Mm-hmm.
year two we switched over. In retrospect, probably not necessary, but
Mm-hmm.
still it's a lower cost entry point because the digital nomad visa is way lower cost for the first year. There is a cost of switching from the
Yep.
nomad to the free zone one, so
Yep.
you just deferred the cost a bit. But that was the way. It was funny because I wrote a letter to give myself a salary and
Yep.
give myself a permission to work remotely for my own company, and stamped it
Yep.
myself and signed it myself and submitted the document, and then I got myself a visa. So,
But
but that was the UK
yeah.
business giving me permission.
Yeah, I was
And
just about to
yeah,
ask, because there are. I would actually point out that the one that you got is actually the legit digital nomad visa, because in the market, what's now commonly known as a freelancer visa isn't exactly a freelancer visa. It's just a company that gives you a visa and gives
yeah,
you an NOC.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a legit visa as well. It's not like it's not a real
Of course, it's
visa.
legit, but
It's a
it's not
legit
the it's
visa.
not the actual
So
quote unquote digital
yeah,
nomad visa. That's a different thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the digital nomad one. It's more suited to the salaried, like remote
Yeah.
workers, and it was to attract actual digital nomads.
Yeah.
But our business is remote. But you can also go through the self-employed route on the digital nomad one. So I could have lived here and kept operating the UK company and kept hiring myself remotely, paying myself remotely. But yeah, non-resident business banking, taxes, and it's just a whole either go back and forth. And I was like, yeah, just like let's just open a company here and start shifting operations here as
So,
well.
so does being, registered in Dubai and now running, the face of the company is now being run from Dubai, not the UK, right?
Yeah, I mean, I am the face of the company, but the
No, okay. So,
invoice.
what's the
So
headquarter address?
the invoice address is IFSA Dubai. So that's
IFZA,
yeah.
perfect.
So our brand name AskiTech, which started, so the brand remained the same. So askitech.com. It's just like existing clients. I sent them an email. I'm in Dubai now, so the invoice will look different, kind of
So,
thing.
so,
But
but
it's
but
still me.
did coming to Dubai change the way you acquired new business, new clients, or is it the same way? What's your main source of generating new clients?
So this is where we specialize in bubble.io as a tech stack. So
Hmm.
it's more a case of marketing ourselves as a bubble.io specialist agency,
Hmm.
and just kind of marketing on YouTube, like fair, like, share, and subscribe to my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. I'm getting the hang of it,
Yeah.
and yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, bubble forums here and there, and referrals. Now a lot because after 4 years, it's a lot of it is just referrals and expansions of existing clients. And yeah, so it's remained. A lot of people are ask me like, why don't you just? There's so much business in Dubai, and I'm like, I'm sure,
Yeah.
but I don't deny that either. But it's just like it's working internationally,
Yeah.
and a lot of business here locally is let's grab a coffee and chat in person. And
Yeah.
I'm more of a behind the computer kind of guy. So it's like
But
here's
but you
my
had that
yeah.
you had that opportunity with Laurie, right? You guys met in Dubai the last time, Laurie, you were there, correct?
Yeah.
I think we meet every year. Yeah, so like
Yeah. Now.
I'm spending my winters in Dubai, and then Zubair is now all the time there. So yeah, it's
But I
Yeah.
think that does open the door for other potential clients to meet up with you, because again, not everyone would go to the UK, but everyone passes through Dubai at one point or another.
Yeah, there are. I've met actually. This is the first time I physically met a client was actually Laurie. I was like, okay, I met I met somebody for like it was like 3 years after running a business. I met someone.
Right.
The second time also they were passing through Dubai. I didn't know at all. Uh, because one of them was in Spain, the other was in Thailand or something. Two brothers. And when I told them I'm in Dubai, and they're like, "Oh yeah, our company is also in Dubai. We
Wow.
operate from Dubai as well."
Everyone's in
So
Dubai.
every 6 months they kind of pass through as well. So I've
Yeah.
met them as well. So yeah, it is like in terms of central hub overall. The US folk tend to not pass on that much. Like it is proper far for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, UK and Australia, yeah, it is a hub. Occasionally people pass through.
Yeah.
so
So
that's
how?
something
Yeah,
actually I
sorry.
wanted to ask about as well, because like every year when I'm in Dubai, like one of the time zones that just doesn't work for me is the US
Yeah.
time zone. Like the time difference is
One.
terrible. So
Yeah.
does it also mean like you don't really have a lot of business in the US and you focus in Europe, or like you just like accept the fact that you're like having calls at like 2 a.m. in the morning?
No, I can't function at 2 a.m. I can barely function at 10 p.m. So that's just me. So, and well, I've got kids, so they wake me up at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
But yeah, initially, a lot of 8 p.m. calls, 7:30 p.m., 8 p.m. calls, dinner, post dinner time calls. Uh, Over time, what has happened interestingly is the sales calendar booking one. I kind of like closed it, and it was more like 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. and Dubai time. And if these don't work, just ping me an email, and then I'll send the other Calendly for the like 8 p.m. slots and everything. So over time, slowly, our clients were more like late night owls, and they hop in at 8 a.m. So it's yesterday for them.
Yeah.
So now it's funny and weird that the 8 a.m. slot is more busy, and there's
Right.
conflicts between Australian clients and
Ah,
Californian clients.
right.
So whether it's like, oh no, not Tuesday, come Wednesday, because Australia is like yesterday. So it's now the mornings are busier. So it's better for like in terms of kids and dinner. But yeah, I hear you. That was like if somebody asked me a downside of moving to Dubai, in terms the time zone one will probably be the one of the top things I'd say that in terms of US client base overlap, that's the hard one.
Okay. So maybe a little background story of how we actually met, which was like I think 4 years ago, and like before that, like Emerhub decided that like okay, like we want to be also in the software business, like we want to become a SaaS company. Like I think every agency at some point feel like it's just like a treadmill. You kind of like you want to make your life a little easier, and like of course like first thing you do when you start building software is like okay, I learned I need product managers, I need developers. So we hired a bunch of people, and like it money just started flying out of the window because like the tech people cost quite a bit of money, and it got so frustrating because I think we spent like 9 months building this like I forgot what tech stack we had, like something like Firestore plus Next.js or something like, and like nothing ever worked. Like just like we kept burning money and like nothing was usable. So I was like, okay, that's enough of burning money. I'll just try to build it myself. So then I found this like no code software called Bubble. So I started building the app myself, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. That's easy. I can do it myself. And then like 2 weeks later, I realized that like the difficulty in building software is not really the coding part, but like all the other things around
The
it.
logic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Making
And
it
then I
work.
was like, okay, I can't spend all my time in Bubble. I need to get some help. And then and
Yeah,
that's where Zubair and his company came in. But
very
that was
common.
also the time when like no code was like one of the big trends online. Like everybody talked about it. It was kind of like before the crypto and AI took over.
Yeah.
So nowadays you don't really hear as much about no code. So it's a trend fading or things normalized, or like what's the industry status right now?
So I don't think it's fading. Every technology goes through like a cycle of like a hype cycle, and then there's so much VC funding going on, and like during crypto, I think I too was like looking at crypto. I was like, is that real, kind of thing. And then it's like it's disappeared. In terms of AI, that's very very real. In terms of the practical application. So as soon as like ChatGPT and OpenAI went more public, we started getting a lot of requests to build a SaaS using AI, and like a bulk of our projects now are AI, to the point that we're actually adding a specialized service offering into AI itself, expanding like chatbot development, outbound voice, inbound voice, all of the solutions. We're also expanding into that direction as well. Up until now, we were more specialist no code bubble agency, but after doing so much work with OpenAI and AI startups, we're like, okay, that's the next kind of service segment to offer. In terms of hype, I think it's just the digital news crowd has shifted to AI. I don't think there's a fundamental ecosystem problem with no code. The no code ecosystem, it adds a lot of value. Like you said, it was like messy before, and you were able to kind of proceed so much faster in 2 weeks. And a lot of clients come to us with that kind of like, I think I've got it working. And I'm like, really? Kind of thing. You're about like 2 months away. You just don't see it, kind of thing. But that's still, it's 2 months. It's not 12 months in code land. So that differential between code and no code still exists. And there's a lot of players out in no code land as well. And they're all also adding AI into the mix. So even in Bubble software, you can type a bit of requirement and it can generate a lot of front end and boilerplate for you. So it's just, I think the news hype has shifted towards AI. The fundamental ecosystem is perfectly fine and growing as well.
There was a time. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
So one thing that really set Askia apart, and that's kind of like a sales pitch for you guys here, but like I work with a few agencies, and like I always felt that like it all starts really nicely. Like you meet the owner, like they give you like a very nice quotation, price is reasonable, progress is fast, and then after the first or second month, like you kind of feel how your project starts getting handed down to like more junior and junior developers, and kind of like the quality starts to like fade. And with you, it's like it's always like, well, maybe I'm getting special treatment, but like it's always you I'm talking to. And like I always feel like if I have a bad idea, then you push back, right? You say like, oh, it never feel like, okay, like the client's idea is stupid, but he's paying, so let's just build it for him. So with you, it's feel like it's
I'm not
like
building that.
Yeah, it's like a collaboration of like, okay, like I feel like my interests are taken care of as well. So like maybe you can like share a bit of like your approach, because like definitely you guys are different than like the vast majority of the agencies I've worked with.
Yeah, so one of the things we've also listed on our website, and my role now is more CTO like partner CTO like, because when it comes to like, here's everything ready, like in terms of Figma wireframe, something, just go build it. That's everybody can do it. But should we build it? That type of question. And I'll be honest, it's a very tricky position to be in, to turn down, like kind of like, no, please don't make me build this. Sometimes I'm proper screaming, kind of like, don't make me build this, kind of thing. But yeah, we're a small agency. We're a specialist agency, and we're a small agency. So I do understand if like in terms of it's unscalable for me to be like the point of contact. But that's part of like how we're growing, and that's, I think, maybe the reason why we get referrals as well. It was like, and sometimes we've received referrals by people on sales calls who didn't proceed with us. It's like, I spoke to him, he's good because he told me off, kind of thing. And that's almost the language. Like, yeah, I am here because so and so told me that you told him off
Yeah.
and prevented him from making a mistake. I was like, yeah, so it came back. So it always comes back in terms of goodwill. But yeah, we're a small specialist agency, and my role is more CTO, startup consultant like. And then there's the development part as well. So
But then that's the question there. So as you mentioned, I was just about to say that, with you as the point of contact, there's only a finite number of projects that you could probably handle at one point in time.
yeah.
So given this technology and the move to AI, what's the next step in your agency's evolution? What are you looking at next?
So in terms of like custom software, we do, but
Mhm.
every client is quite different. Like each somebody has a project management system, somebody has a marketplace, somebody has a job board, like very different solutions, very different architectures. The next AI segment that we're operating in, we're thinking of doing a bit more productizable service, or niching down into
Perfect.
one style of kind of service. So in AI at the moment, it's generic and will do anything. If EmberHub wants something, it's fine. But there's outbound voice. So outbound, like if it's a recruiter, do you have a visa? Do you have this? Do you have certification? This. So that's very easy to automate as well. There's inbound voice. So there's like, instead of having a 24/7 call center service manning your telephone line on your website, you can have like an AI operator who can just pick up the phone. Hi, how, what did you do? Gather a bit of requirements, integrate with the CRM, and just either book a call for them with the right solutions expert, or just like, we'll get in touch, don't worry, we'll get in touch, and next day the lead's ready for the sales consultant to operate. So that's the voice segment. The other is the chat interface segment, where if it's like a customer support or lead qualification, so those are the niches we're looking for. So with custom software, it's not possible to niche down, so it'll remain a bit generic. With the other mechanisms, if we're gonna like try and niche them into one particular vertical, one particular kind of like channel, like if it's, for example, inbound voice, so then it's just like hone in on inbound voice and try and like sell the same service to others. If it's like customer support chatbot, or the current one we're trying more on is lead qualification chatbots. So I have this problem as well, and that's where I think it started. That's how you start these, anyways. A lot of people get on a call with me, and they're just not a right fit.
Yeah.
Maybe they're too early. Maybe it's a budget problem. Maybe they don't. Maybe their idea doesn't work with Bubble. They've got a game idea. Like, games are not really suitable for like what we do. So there's a lot of like qualification questions I can ask, like healthcare, medical record stuff, not possible. So in terms of a qualification chatbot, which after booking the call, I'm still experimenting if it's before booking the call or after booking the call. But immediately after is just like, here are a couple of questions, just chat, answer, link it to the CRM. And the next day, if it's a cancel, it's a cancel. If it's a like continue, it's better and warmed up. And I'm sure this solution, others will face it as well. I don't know, Laurie, do you guys have like qualification challenges?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Every day.
I,
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue is that, like, in an ideal world, you want like the right consultant from your agency to talk with the right client, and then
Yeah.
like the big issue is that, like, if I have like someone like very senior and like they have to reply emails that like never get responded because it's like an unqualified lead, actually, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa, if like somebody who joined yesterday is talking to like a Fortune 500 company who masked their email. It's like,
Yeah,
so,
I've had those. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
yeah,
No, I like
That's a
what you
big
said
issue.
about. I like what you said about people being too early, because I do face that as well. Because even in the UAE, when I look at my competitors, everyone has this question as a pre-qualifier. How soon are you looking to begin? And
begin.
at
Yeah,
times that often does get overlooked, and I would get on a call with a potential client, and they'd say, oh yeah, we're looking to incorporate next year. I'm like, dude, I just I'm spending time out of my day, which could be spent talking to another company, and you wanted to incorporate next year, so it's a challenge. Absolutely.
yeah. I think this is where potentially a CRM, a bit of AI can help. So I'll give an example. Somebody reached out, cold DM on LinkedIn, tuition services for kids. And I distinctly remember, because it's a very rare DM to read. Like every LinkedIn cold DM is more like, I have IT so many developers. Can you please? Oh, do you need one? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but this one's like, tuition on LinkedIn. Oh, that's a good one. And for kids. So maybe they filtered by age or something. I was like, my kid's like, he's 2. so come back in 2 years.
Yeah.
And they missed. So they could have come back in 2 years and they could have gotten tuition out of me. So a
Technically,
long
yeah.
sales cycle. We just had one project start where the initial call was November last year. So it does happen, but it's very hard to keep a track of. I'll be honest, I've missed many. Sometimes I look at the CRM. Oh yeah, I spoke to him. I did forgot to follow up. So, my bad, kind of thing. So yeah, it's qualification is a challenge, and that's where we're exploring and working with AI as well. And
So
overall,
is
the
this
space.
a long-term plan, kind of like build your own products, perhaps like have the agency as like the cash cow, or like what's the long-term game?
So maybe it's more phases. So I saw this podcast, and it's a quite common thing that in terms of like a job, individual consultancy, an agency, and then a productized agency, and then go to SaaS. I mean, you could shortcut and go to SaaS or raise VC money. A lot of people can do it. And we've tried different product ideas and SaaS ideas several times, and they're harder. They're tricky to gain traction in. I think we made our first $10 just recently on a SaaS product, and we refunded it. It was funny because it was our first $10 from SaaS, and I was telling my wife, I was just refunded. I was like, why? It's our first 10, and I'm like, because we've canceled the idea. So the idea worked in a sense that somebody paid us $10 for it. But the experiment, we were like, okay, we're not proceeding. And the AI tech is too early for that particular idea. So the next step, we're going more in the AI services segment and try and productize the service a bit more. And then who knows, after 5 years, maybe SaaS or a different domain.
But since you're like 5 years into this business, that's usually the time when like most people, unless you're like Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates, will feel like, I don't want to run my business anymore. Like I'm burning out. Like, is that something you feel like, or you're like still as excited as you were?
I wouldn't say as excited as the initial kind of stages, but it is still. I mean, that's probably one of the benefits of working with startups. That like when the AI wave came, oh, we have got a recruitment system. We were parsing resumes, and it's like so. Being a software engineer and techie, shiny problem, kind of like. So if there's a problem, we're fine and we're happy. Recently, one was like an AI video YouTube Shorts generator, and when he first came, I'm like, that's not possible. But managed to make it work in terms of like you write a prompt. It's like how to make money in, I don't know, 10 steps or something, and it will try and run a series of AI and stock footage and subtitles and matching, and it'll generate a 60-second video for you to publish on YouTube and grow a channel in a niche or something. So there's always a challenge when working in startups environment. And yeah, then we're always kind of like tinkering around on the side. So yeah, in terms of day-to-day operations, there's like, it's like, family expenses, everything. So that's ongoing anyways. We've distributed a bit more in terms of, I don't think we've completed the transition yet, but the slow plan is to switch more to a consultancy style rather than a software agency. So the consultancy model is that the juniors go up to junior partner, to senior partner, to full partner. So some of the experienced staff are now in the junior to senior partner category. So there have been a couple of projects where I've not spoken to the clients because one of the partner has taken the call and delivered the whole thing as well with a junior's help. So it's very different to a traditional software agency, which is more like have a sales team, have a business analyst, and have a front end and an architect and try and run the machinery. I found with no code particularly, the team sizes are too small
Yeah.
and the project domain knowledge is too tricky. So it's harder to go in that direction. Maybe there are others who do that, and I don't mind. I think it's totally possible as well. But there's definitely the consultancy style operation ones as well, and that's the direction we're taking. So in terms of that is the step back kind of what you asked, like okay, day to day it's long hours and whatnot. So it's like okay, giving more and trying like maybe some deals don't close. That's
Mhm.
part of part of the game there. But over time, it's a path for the dev team and the partners now, and it's a path for me to take a little bit step back as well.
So
So
I guess,
when
yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm okay. So one of my biggest fears always was with MRHub, especially in the early years, was like we were in the beginning for like the first 4 or 5 years, we were only in Indonesia, and like always in the back of my mind was like I don't want to be poor again, right? Like what happens if something happens to Indonesia that like my business is like obsolete,
Yeah,
something like what
shut
if like a
down.
dictator comes to power and nobody wants to come to Indonesia anymore? Which like in emerging markets sometimes those things happen,
Tends to
right?
happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like do you have the same fear like okay, like what if like bubble.io decides like we don't want to do this business anymore, we're closing down, like, or do you have this kind of like fears as well?
I think every business owner probably has a certain level of fear all the time, anyways. But the answer to that, and it's more around the skills overall, that there's a certain set of skills. I think in terms of like setting up another agency, I would probably be able to do that. I can't say the same for setting up a different type of like business, like I don't know, a lawn mowing business or there's just like in-person ones, there's like digital ones, there's agency ones. So similar type, like there's a specialist skill and deliver results. So but yeah, it's a tricky question. But yeah, I don't think there's ever an answer to it. If you look at even the biggest players like Nokia, or like these like massive companies who are like everybody had a Nokia phone once.
Yeah.
Nobody has a Nokia
Yeah.
phone now. So everybody had one of those like Kodak film shops and everything, and nobody has them anymore. So even big ones, you just can't. You have to keep innovating, and the market is quite brutal in that sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I was actually, on that note, when you're dependent on a platform, as heavily dependent and as Zubair you might be on one platform, Bubble, I guess you could say that your skills are transferable to any other no code platform as well. But this is something that a lot of marketers in Pakistan faced at the time, because we build our skills on Facebook and YouTube. And Zubair, you might remember there was a time when YouTube was banned in Pakistan for a long time.
Long
So
time? Was
yeah,
it?
it was.
Okay.
It was a couple of years, yeah.
Whoa.
So yeah, so when that happens to the platform that you build your skill on, it does make things tricky, right? But so I wanted to kind of close with the future of Bubble and how can other entrepreneurs look at it. A concern that a lot of companies, startups have, was that venture capitalists looked at Bubble and saw something non-robust. And I know that that has changed over the past 2 years specifically. So given that it's now evolved and people know more about it, but the trend has shifted, do you think that entrepreneurs looking to start, whether it's a SaaS company or a product company or whatever, internal tools or internal systems, should they be looking at Bubble, or should they go to the hardcore development side of things?
There's no issue with Bubble itself as a platform. They've raised a lot of venture funding, 100 million, and they've grown the team size. They've got millions of apps now, and lots of like funds have been raised by startups built on Bubble now. So it's more mature in terms of that. But when it comes to like starting a tech service business, pick something in demand.
Mhm.
It all every kind of service segment I think goes through the same cycle. There's an initial, like I think when the YouTube shorts and when TikTok was coming out, being able to do short edits was like severely in demand
Yeah.
compared to like long form edits. But now I'm sure that's also a mature kind of segment. Copywriting was a huge skill. Now I'm sure it's a very mature skill, especially with ChatGPT. It has changed things. So I definitely, the recommendation would be to look towards something alongside AI, or you can go completely the other way and go physical. It's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna open a plumbing kind of like you're laughing here. You're laughing here, but in the Western side of the world, if you go to trade school, you'll be there is discussion now on YouTube that you'll become a millionaire faster if you go
No,
the trade route.
it's absolutely
Okay.
true. Like I actually had this discussion recently. Like, what are the jobs that are very unlikely to be taken over by AI? And essentially,
Was plumbing one of them? Yeah.
plumbing, lawn mowing,
Yeah.
AI
Yeah.
probably cannot do it.
But see, that's the thing, Zubair. We don't focus on jobs like this in Pakistan, do we? We are just so we don't do it.
And you shouldn't. I think the market, the population, it's a different kind of like each geography has a different kind of
Yeah.
challenge to it. That's a population challenge. Like this is not a problem in Dubai because you can just hire overseas workers from anywhere and start.
Absolutely.
But a plumbing company is different. That's still there. Like even the car wash companies here are earning a lot.
No, I've run a technical. I told Lauri last time I've run a technical services company in Dubai for about 2 years, and that was AC workers, and then there was masonry workers, and plumbing workers as well. Huge demands. So yeah, I kind of get it.
Yeah, HVAC were during COVID.
HVAC, yeah.
HVAC is key workers. So it's like they didn't shut down because if they shut down, people start dying. So in Dubai.
Well, I guess before you start your plumbing company, it would be good to be a plumber maybe for 6 months. But if you can do it in Dubai instead of Karachi, it would pay better, I guess.
Okay, so I'm gonna have an internship as a plumber soon. Yeah. So Lauri, over to you for the.
Yes. So one question that I'm sure a lot of like our overseas Pakistani listeners would like to know is like the tax question. Like, is Dubai a good place to go for your tax optimization? Like, would you move there simply for that reason?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't think I'm an expert in taxation. But as far as like resident and income tax goes, the UAE is pretty good in that matter. It's an expensive place to live, but I'm not worried about taxes as such. In the UK, there's like taxes. Be careful of HMRC and everything. In Pakistan, I think I was too young, so I don't know. It's like the company, they just taxed at source. I didn't file or anything. So I can't speak too heavily on the taxation side as such.
Well, generally, again, the UAE does have benefits when it comes to tax, but I like what you said earlier about that the cost of living and everything else is so expensive anyway that you might as well pay the taxes anywhere else in the world. But I'm sure that even with that, the benefits in taxes do help running the business in Dubai, right?
Yeah, I mean, and there's also the quality of life. You're closer to parents and the hub. There's a bunch of other factors, not just one single factor when you're talking about moving. There's schooling, there's overall environment, like just a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Well, definitely, Dubai is definitely a recommended destination for running businesses, not just because of the quality of life, of course, but as we discussed, it's at pretty much the heart of everyone traveling anywhere. So it does give you access to a very good market, and that's what I found talking to a lot of people here. That that's the biggest benefit they get. That they, especially for entrepreneurs moving from Pakistan to Dubai, they suddenly have access to a larger market. They have more trust from clients, which they couldn't have if they had companies in Pakistan. Definitely. So setting up a development agency or anything in Dubai and having workers from Pakistan, I believe that is the lesson from today's podcast, correct?
Yeah, totally.
Fantastic. Lauri, do you have any final thoughts to add?
Yeah, I think what you said makes a lot of sense, but like it's easier said than done. So
gray hair.
Figure out how to get the most out of your team. I think like that's if you can figure out how to like put your emerging markets team to perform, you're golden. Like you can go so far.
Yeah. Totally.
Absolutely. But then again, here are plugs for both of you guys for excellent development stuff. With developers in Pakistan, we have Askia Tech,
Askia Tech Labs, yeah.
And if anyone's looking for excellent developers with the Pakistani proxy, then we have Recruit Go.
Recruit Go.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We've gone a bit over time, but this was fantastic. I'm sure our listeners are gonna take a lot of lessons from what we've discussed here, and it was absolutely a pleasure hosting you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
While the world's still asleep, we're already grinding. Walking foreign streets, big city lights so blinding. Learning and hustling in this relentless game. The Emerge Pods next up, we're breaking the frame. Yeah. While the world's still asleep, we're breaking the frame.